Hello, everyone. It's Michael Jaco with Unleashing Intuition Secrets. So, massive storm coming across the country. Left our prayers, everybody. Let's make it less of a storm. Sending out the prayer and the make it not so bad. All right, just dream on that and pray on that, and we'll make it a lot less. All right. So, California, California is not the place you want to be. So, like the Beverly Hillbillies, they loaded up their trucks. So everybody's loading up their trucks and moving out of Cali, right? So not such a great place to be these days. All right. So there's lots of problems in Cali. Now the latest, like we've seen in Minneapolis, is incredible fraud. So the fraud that we're seeing in Minneapolis is going to be very small compared to California. I think everyone probably knows that at this point. So I followed this representative in California, Kevin Kiley, and he's got this one post. Today's Judiciary Committee hearing, Nick Shirley agreed that fraud in California may be even worse than what he uncovered in Minneapolis. So I would say that's an absolute. So let's kind of go over and look at that real quick. So here is his page, Representative Kiley. So in here's Nick Shirley giving testimony, and there's Kevin Kiley, asking him questions. But it's absolutely a problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem. Now, for 15 years, whole milk has been banned for 20 million school children in California. The president just signed a bill I helped pass to end this crazy policy and bring whole milk back to our schools. What the heck? It's like, and bring back raw milk too, if you can. So they don't like that. You talk about raw milk, they'll take you down on YouTube. Here's another one with Jack Smith. It says Jack Smith was reversed and rebuked by multiple Democrat appointed judges and even the Department of Justice itself for overstepping his authority and circumventing constitutional rights. Yet he wouldn't say he made a single mistake in the whole investigation. All right. So this is one of the things that these criminals in the Democrat Party and the liberal media and so forth, they're going to continue to war against us and put their judges and their congressmen and their women and their lawyers and so forth to continually push back on us when we're trying to get justice and get rid of criminals and so forth in our cities. So in Minneapolis, I saw it looked like AI to me, but there's some video that's rolling out there that looks like it's 10,000 people demonstrating and minus 30-degree cold. I don't think so. Right? I think that's a absolute AI thing that's going on out there. So we'll see. In the future, a lot of this get exposed. Now we're gonna have a guest on here in a second, Vem Miller. He's going to talk about. Speaking of California, he's going to be talking about Chad Bianco. This guy is maybe has some problems in his background. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Of course, Lewis Herms is the guy we want to make it all the way. And you're going to, just like everything else, they're going to throw interference constantly at the people that would probably serve us the best. Now, here's Lewis Herms. Now we've done shows for years. He's an amazing guy. Bold solutions to restore California's freedom and prosperity. High taxes and cost of living equals waste, fraud, and abuse. Like we're seeing right now in Minneapolis and in Maine. I guess they went up to Maine. They found some problems there too, over in Ohio. Of course, California is going to be the mother of all fraud, waste, and abuse states. I guarantee you. So there's lots of issues out there: abortion or right to life, utility cost, wildfires. We know that these guys have been setting a lot of these wildfires with energy weapons. Infrastructure and transportation, seniors and veterans are ignored. Education, California is towards the bottom in education, yet they spend probably the most on their school children. AI, artificial intelligence takeover, crime, homelessness. They're defrauding with homelessness as well. Lots of billions and billions of dollars have gone missing. They're supposed to go on to the homeless. Economic inequality and poverty, housing affordability. It's one of the most expensive places on the planet to buy homes. So lots of problems. Police and fire, once celebrated as noble professions, they're basically coming after the police and the fire people. God, it's crazy. Our children being exposed to poison, and they're being poisoned. Election fraud, of course, every time there's any kind of election that happens in California, within a second, it's already been decided. It's like, oh, yep, this person won. Or, Joe Biden won. Right. I mean, 1 second after California, opened it up so they could, show the voting. Same thing with, a lot of I think just about for the last probably 2-3 decades, you've had, governors in California that were selected, not elected. Then, of course, really this should be at the top. Child trafficking is our silent plague, and that's one of the problems that's really rampant in California as well. And really, there's only one person that's going after that aggressively, and that's Louis Herms. So, lots of great stuff. And let's bring in Vem. Vem, how you doing?
How you doing, sir? How are you?
Very good, very good. Thanks for coming on. So
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I've been following you for quite a bit. Definitely pre-election, you're producing some great content. So thanks for having me on your show.
Excellent. Yeah. So we hear that you've got some very interesting information on Chad Bianco.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I wanted to correct, you were saying I have some problems. I think the biggest problems that somebody has right now is Chad Bianco, because frankly, he accused me of being the third assassin and for third Trump assassin. And for people that have been following me, you could actually find videos on this topic where he pretty much made up the whole thing, said I'd entered a Trump rally with guns, which was categorically false. It wasn't even possible on that day. That's what people, I don't think, understand is the degree of his lying in order for him to get on television. He's a bit of a media hoe, and he's done this sort of thing to a lot of people. After he falsely accused me, he accused another 22-year-old college student for some blanket threat she had made. And this is a person that doesn't own guns and is just a college student, female, 22 years old. And based upon that, he got the Riverside board to essentially fund his security for his campaign. He has 11 armed guards that follow him around everywhere he goes, backtracking to the, fake assassination hoax. I mean, a lot of people remember that date because for, a couple of days, this was pretty much worldwide news. And I think what some people don't necessarily know, but this information is available on my platforms for you to see it yourself and hear the recordings yourself. Really, it was all lies. It was all lies. I was 1.2 miles from the rally, and I drove up to a parking lot. And before even attempting to enter, I rolled up to a deputy, told him I had a couple of firearms, even offered for them to hold on to the firearms, right? Subsequent to that, Chad Bianco the next day, after the FBI and Secret Service say that Trump was in no danger, they don't even want to interview me. They don't even want to. While I was in custody, they came in and kind of looked at me, and I think they had already done their research. This was only like 3 hours into this ordeal on October 12th. They decide, there's nothing here. They didn't even question me about it, which is not what you do for an assassin suspect, even if the person is suspect. I'm not talking about if there was obviously no legitimacy to it. Well, Chad Bianco has gone around for the last 12 months propagating this false information. And again, for people, I'm very active in terms of releasing receipts, and I have all of them. And for people that want to check it out, this guy's going around still saying this guy tried to enter a Trump rally, digging a deeper hole for himself in terms of the defamation, because it shows that this wasn't like a one-day event, that this is something he's using in his campaign, very much like how he lies and he said he is praying with BLM, when there's tons of videos out there that show him kneeling for BLM, saying 100% he's working with BLM. And today he says that, hey, they're a terrorist organization, and if I ever did this, I'd have to quit my job. I mean, there's videos of him kneeling, saying, I am kneeling for BLM, 100% working with them. So, I released the thing yesterday, which is Bianco in a straitjacket, questioning the mental health of this individual who thinks that by yelling at people, the facts, the receipts are going to change, And so, I'm out there really to warn people about this guy. I agree with you that Lewis is a fantastic candidate. And the reasons I love Lewis so much is because he's actually an investigative journalist, right? He knows how to dig the receipts on corrupt individuals. And my point of view is that in modern day and age, you can't go into office being willing to kneel for these corrupt politicians. If you're going in there thinking I'm going to compromise with these leftists, with these communist Marxists, and there's negotiation room there, well, guess what? You're in one way or another going to sell out the state or the country. That's a fact, What I like about Lewis is he's the type of person that will find the dirt, which, by the way, he's done a lot of that in terms of Chad Bianco as well, where there's receipts of him. I'll give you some examples where, let's say, a door costs $3,000. He's billing it at $50,000. If a room costs $100,000, he's billing it at $800,000. And guess who pockets all the change, right? Or at least some of the change. And so when I heard Lewis in his debate against Bianco, where there was a bit of fuckery on that one too, because I noticed Lewis's mic for some reason was in mono while Bianco sounded like the singer of Korn on stage, and it was obvious that somebody was doing some trickery back behind the scenes to mute Lewis's voice. Well, those are all hallmarks of somebody that the establishment fears, which is the kind of person I think we need. I think we need the kind of person that's able to find the dirt on people. Like, imagine Nick Shirley, what he's done with Waltz in Minnesota. And now imagine you have a politician in terms of Louis Herms that goes in there, has his, what I call the media assassins, a term that I coined after I got called the third assassin, which is pretty much what we've been doing for about 8 years now, is exposing these types of individuals. Well, imagine you have somebody in there that's able to hand an envelope and say, hey, corrupt leftist person who's a Marxist, here are the receipts on how you've been ripping off the people. So you have an option here. You have an option. Either we could go Nick Shirley on you and make sure you'll never see another day in office, or we're going to get rid of these Marxist bills. We're going to return parental rights. We're going to return common sense regulations, get rid of the over regulations that's driving small businesses out of business in California. So I'm equally excited about Louis Herms as much as I am not excited about Chad Bianco. And I'm just here to tell information to people so they could make a wise choice, because this is one of the most important elections in California history. We already saw New York go down the drain to communist Marxists, and that could very well happen to California. And then our country's sandwiched between these two massively powerful states with bad leaders in office. So that's what I'm here to talk about.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I remember this incident, Vim. And I was like, man, they screwed that guy over big time. I'm so glad you're stepping out and pushing back. Now I see you filed a lawsuit.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we filed a lawsuit really early on because what happened subsequent to this third assassin, the lies, is that they sent Las Vegas Metropolitan police officers to my parents' home thinking that that's where I was, with false information. And by the way, on X, if you search geriatric terrorism, you'll find the body cam footage, a short documentary that shows what happened the day after. And I believe their intention was to cause me harm, because they came there with lies that I had killed my parents and then went to kill Trump. And you hear the cops talking about this. You see good cops in there that are like, look, this is ridiculous, we should just leave. And then you see the bad cops in there that are clearly there to, sell a false narrative, will go into my parents' home without a warrant. They're trying to, essentially enter without a warrant. Luckily, my parents didn't let them. And we also had a gentleman by the name of Steve Sanson, who's been fighting corruption for like 30 years. He's one of the OGs. That's a friend of mine that was called in to stop what was going on. He had to make calls to the governor and sheriff of Clark County, which is Las Vegas, to prevent this incursion. But it was very clear that their intention there, and you know how this stuff happens, man, where it's like, oh, we saw him reach for something, and it's like a water bottle, and next thing you know, the guy's dead, and the next day they're making you out to be Lee Harvey Oswald. So once we realized that was the game, and also I ran as an America First Republican in 2022 with a lady by the name of Sigal Chadha, who's a lawyer. They stepped in with concerns of, this being like the worst of worst cop corruption, and filed a lawsuit overnight, pretty much as a signal that, this is coming to a stop. And that's when the violent intentions, I think, stopped. But Chad Bianco's defamation has continued until today, which, when you have the taxpayers paying for these lawsuits, and I'll give you an example. He's already lost $100 million worth of lawsuits. He's got another 19 on tap, 12 of them being about people that died in his custody. He's had the highest number of jail deaths in California history.
Wow.
I sent you videos of his deputies, beating the crap out of people, using SWAT gear to walk in, like 12 guys in SWAT gear to take down one guy in a jail cell. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable level of violence and bad behavior that's coming out of the department. But, when you listen to Chad Bianco, he talks about, things like, hey, I wish it was the 60s still, so we could take people behind the woodshed and beat the shit out of them, like literally his words, So, and then, he says stuff like, I'm the sheriff, I could do whatever I want, and what do you mean you could do whatever I want? I mean, even Joseph Stalin and Hitler didn't talk like that, no, you can't do whatever you want, So you kind of see his personality, his power hungry nature, just willing to, destroy people's lives for his own personal gain. And, he's hiding behind the R right now, but, that's just tyrant behavior. That's like a dictator. Another thing he said is that he wants to make the word homelessness illegal and throw people in jail for it. So, I mean, it's, he's the gift that keeps on giving. Every time he opens his mouth, we get to see what he's really all about.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Do you want to share some of those videos?
Yeah, should I do it on mine? I had sent it to your producer too, but I could definitely load it on mine as well. And here, one sec. Screen share. You know what? Give me one sec here. But for people, that are interested in this topic, I have a lot of stuff posted on we run this network, Mindy Robinson and I, called America Happens. If you guys go to our Rumble channel, there's a lot of videos there. There's a lot of videos on my X account, which is @ Vem Miller, just like written there, or americahappens.com. And one sec here, I'm going to share this screen. But, for the viewers out there, I mean, I really, right now we have Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco leading in this very important race. Mm-hmm. And I hope people actually take the time to get to know Lewis, because he's got all the right ideas. And this is a different landscape in terms of politics. We need somebody that goes in there, because negotiating with these people and trying to bend the knee, it's all of these knee benders that think that they're going to negotiate with people that have bad ideas that come from a Marxist point of view. And I don't think that is going to do it anymore, because that is just like the slow road to tyranny. And you get somebody like Newsom, in office, and it becomes the fast road to tyranny. So one sec here. Screen share. Got it here. All right. Is that working now?
That's it.
All right. So this is a compilation video I put together that kind of has a selection of different Chad Bianco antics. So I'll just play this and kind of stop along the way to talk about it.
I am the highest elected official in this county. I can do anything that I want. There is only one sheriff's uniform, and that's mine.
Sorry, you have a different opinion than me, and I'm sorry yours is wrong.
Yes. So voters want a candidate that's staying their ground when defending their values and their beliefs. Again, a lot of tough talk, but actions are what matter. So Sheriff Bianco, in June 2020, you were in a face-off with the anti-American, anti-police enemy BLM, and you took a knee. Look, hey, hate me all you want. It just fuels me. Just keep it coming. A few hours later, the looting started. Okay? So why should the voters trust you to hold the line next time? And what would the rest of you do differently when facing the same enemy?
It's interesting that you're coming here with your attitude, but your entire question is too balanced. There were 10,000 people in downtown Riverside. There were 1,200 cops. 950 were my deputies. 300 were other law enforcement officers outside of that. No, I never took a knee to BLM. So here's the thing. So for all of you Republicans out there, for all of you with a brain and who can critical think, right now, I am arguably the most respected law enforcement leader in the country. Right now, I am the most respected law enforcement leader in this state. Right now, I am the most respected law enforcement leader in my county, hands down. That never could be possible with what you just said happened, me kneeling to BLM. Absolutely not. Here's the answer. My God is far bigger than BLM. My God is far bigger than this room, your silly question, or the lie that the looting started after. My job that night, after we prayed for the safety of my deputies,
Don't assault me. I didn't ask you a question.
we're going to add time for him interrupting me. We're going to add time for him interrupting me. Here's the thing. After I told them personally that we were shutting them down because it was turning riotous, we gave them 20 minutes to leave. They asked if they could pray for my deputies. I said, absolutely. And they did. 30 minutes later, we physically, with the most force ever used against a domestic terrorist organization without killing anyone, we removed them from Riverside with zero looting, with zero damage, and with zero injuries to my deputies. And to this day, those organizations put out across their social media, do not go to Riverside County because we can't help you with Sheriff Chad Bianco. It is a lie perpetrated by some candidate.
Listen to somebody commanding the crowd, saying, "Give them space to take the knee." Look at the officer. They're even recording this moment.
The unfortunate part of this is everybody. This is a huge divide. There's no working here, voices being heard. It's just a big, huge divide. And the leaders of this have to work with us to make a difference. And if this is what starts it, then this is what starts it.
We're working with them right now by taking the news.
100%. 100%.
You're working with them right now by taking a knee.
100%. 100%.
What is your message to the community?
The message to the community is this does nothing. This does nothing. Your voices mean everything. Actions do not. Actions are contrary to what our voices say sometimes.
Which started October 13, 2024, when Sheriff... All right, I'm going to stop her real quick. Do you mind if we just talk about what we saw before we get into this next one?
Heck yeah, boy. He's just killed himself.
Dude, like, here's the thing. I mean, you just saw him lie about everything. He said he didn't take a knee, but he took a knee, and he thinks he's going to raise his voice and yell at people, which is... like, it's just that there's no diplomacy in that. It kind of feels very psychotic. It's like a serial killer walking around with a dead body in their trunk and saying that there's no dead body. The amount he compliments himself, I mean, I joke, man. I've never seen a man suck his own dick like this ever in my life. He's like, I'm the greatest. I'm the
top.
Huh?
It's over the top. Yeah.
I'm the greatest.
And even bringing in God is like, and God, and it's like, whoa. And
Dude,
now we see all the lies. It's like, whoa, this guy's like, he's got some horns on him.
Dude, like, he in churches, that's what kills me, is that he pretends he's a Christian by going around to churches for the last 3 years, by the way, brother. Last 3 years, saying the same lie, saying he's a Christian. And I'm just like, dude, how does that even, like, how do you even have the balls to do that when you're such a great liar? Like, you're lying in front of God out of all people, you know? So anyway, like, it's that's his personality, though. That's the kind of person we're dealing with. I have no idea why anybody in the California Republican Party would think that this guy's a good idea. One of the things I've noticed is, you know, for people that are aware of the Schiff Garvey race, where Schiff handily beat him he destroyed Garvey. What happened with that race is that Katie Porter was leading, and in the jungle primary of California, the Schiff camp was very worried. They were saying that, look, if it's me against Katie Porter, everybody knows Katie Porter could be quite a nasty person. And they thought, look, if it's Katie Porter versus Schiff, it is going to cost us $100 million, right? So what these clever leftists did, and this is, again, something that I fault the Republicans, because the Democrats are playing chess, which I don't even think the Republicans in California know how to play checkers, right? So they go out there and they say, let's give $10 million to Garvey, make sure, and this is pre-primary. So somebody getting $10 million is an awful lot of money. That's usually not the way it works. Usually the money comes in after the primary is already won, right? But they give this dude $10 million. He beats Katie Porter. He's second to Schiff. And then guess what? The general election happens, and Schiff destroys Garvey, because Garvey was a terrible candidate, which is exactly what's going on here. Because if you notice, the mainstream media, whereas with a Republican that they don't like, you know, example being Trump, they'll just go overboard in trying to get rid of that person, right? But what's happening is they're kind of being quiet right now because it's pre-primary. And any one of these candidates we've talked about, especially Herms, you know, right now, I guess Hilton's neck and neck with Bianco, but Herms or Hilton is a much bigger challenge for the Democrats. So these guys are playing a lot of chess on us, while, you know, you heard the audience there too, man, where they're like, you know, he's talking about, you know, all these lies. It's obvious he's lying. You got the people that are diehard supporters of him, which, by the way, they bust in from Riverside, because that's his kind of, you know, they brought in a lot of former cops and current cops that are on his payroll. So that was why those people were like, woo, you know, Bianco, whatever. But that's not the real world. That's like a room that they fabricated for his own gain. This piece is basically about the third assassin. It's about, you know, 3 minutes long, and, you know, shows a little bit more of Bianco's behavior, if you want me to play this one.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And just to, you know, give you some insights on, you know, the way the Californian Republican Party is. A lot of us supported Cordy Williams, who's like the megaphone Marine. I don't know if you remember him or familiar with him, but
you're talking about the chiropractor.
Yeah.
Dude, he's somebody. We've been friends for a real long time, dude. I love Cordy.
Nice. That guy was crushing it.
Yeah.
So the GOP gave all the money to a guy that never wins. Crazy. Crazy.
Dude, they're the biggest scumbags, man. This is why I'm kind of done with this Republican Democrat paradigm when we have a Republican Party in California that's been invaded by a bunch of Marxists. And by the way, another big thing, man, that is my biggest issue with them, right? You have so many amazing candidates. If you're preparing for a fight, you get all these candidates on a stage and you have them duke it out for 16 months leading up to the primary. But what they've done is there hasn't been one debate. There's been question and answer sessions where candidates like Chad Bianco are given questions ahead of time. And by the way, that question was given to him ahead of time. He knew that question was coming. And even then, he loses his shit and gets aggressive with voters. And that never looks good. It never looks good for somebody to lose their temper that way, right? So there's been no debate. So now we have a situation where somebody great like Louis Herms, but which, by the way, Louis is a hell of a debater. You know, he comes with receipts, but he's not even been given a chance by the Republican Party. They just decided Chad Bianco is our guy. In fact, what the Riverside Republican Party did is they were having a question and answer session that they invited a bunch of candidates to, right? And we did some interviews. Two candidates that talked about this is Daniel Mercury and David Serpa. And they said about how they're really excited. They thought finally they're going to be on stage with Chad Bianco, be given a decent chance. Well, they find out through the grapevine that they've already decided Chad Bianco is winning. Okay. And this is where it gets even crazier. So these guys are like, you know what? F this. You know, they're trying to set us over a trap. They're trying to humiliate us. Man, Chad Bianco doesn't even show up to the question and answer session, and they still gave him the win.
Wow. Jeez.
Like,
yeah, he's being selective. That's bullshit. Yeah. So yeah, we need to close this. Good job, man. Let's roll it.
Yeah, here we go. Which started October 13, 2024, when Sheriff Chad Bianco falsely accused me of being the third Trump assassin. He did this without a shred of evidence, and he knew he was lying through and through. He knew that the stories he was saying were impossible to happen on that day.
I am glad that we're not talking about this after we shot him. If you're asking me right now, I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt. He was a lunatic. It's people trying to do harm, and thank God we prevented it. And we know that we prevented something bad from happening, and it's irrelevant what that bad was going to be. I truly do believe that we prevented another assassination attempt.
The truth is that Vem Miller was 1.2 miles from a Trump rally, as this evidence shows, and he was not trying to enter a Trump rally. In fact, it was impossible to enter a Trump rally from where he was, because you would have to park your car and take a shuttle 1.2 miles down the road, and then be screened by Secret Service before you entered the actual rally. But until today, Chad Bianco lies about this topic.
Look at what we just did. We found a guy with guns inside the Trump rally. I couldn't think of the word.
Everything Bianco said there was a lie. They did not find anything. Vem literally drove up to a deputy 1.2 miles from the rally and let them know he had 2 guns in the back of his SUV.
So I'm a Trump caucus captain, but I want to be totally transparent. I'm from Nevada, and I do have my firearms in the back. Do you guys want to hang on to it? I mean, I don't mind you guys holding on to it either.
They'll decide what they're going to do.
Okay.
Just pull up in the outfit.
All right, thank you.
Where are you trying to go?
Oh, the gentleman, that sheriff told me to pull in here because I told him I have 2 firearms in the back, and I'm just letting you guys know.
Solid, hold on.
We found a guy with guns inside the Trump rally. I couldn't think of the word. Rally. I couldn't think of the word.
By the time Bianco had his press conference on October 13th, 2024, the FBI and Secret Service had already stated that there was no threat to Trump and declined to even interview Vem Miller.
This event and the ongoing lies of Chad Bianco caused me to investigate the corruption in California. And what I found is that Chad Bianco is far from a novelty. He wouldn't get away with such crimes if there wasn't an entire ecosystem there to protect him. And protect him they did. Well, after that, Chad Bianco spent the last 16 months using his power to suppress my speech, to weaponize his governor campaign against me, to put out more falsities, to put a target on my back. I've been targeted, harassed, assaulted, lost contact with my children, had my parents attacked, and a litany of other repugnant behavior due to Sheriff Chad Bianco. But Sheriff Chad Bianco, nonetheless, today is one of the leading Republican candidates. He claims that he is a MAGA Republican. He claims that as a constitutional sheriff, while using suppression of speech, while banning me from events, while insisting that armed security guards are hired to remove me should I ever go to any of his events, even as a spectator. Sheriff Chad Bianco is a symptom of the disease of corruption that is plaguing California and plaguing our entire nation. Corruption and criminals in powerful positions in our government has become the rule and not the exception.
I wish it was the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. We take them behind the shed and beat the shit out. I wish it was the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. We take them behind the shed and beat the shit out.
So if you have any questions about that third assassin piece I showed you, and that last piece you saw is him talking about beating the shit out of illegal immigrants, which he openly said, I couldn't believe it actually came out of his mouth.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, this guy's over the top bad dude. So I'm glad you're exposing this. This is, but where do you think this is going to go? Is this going to get any traction? Is it getting any traction?
Well, you know, we're being heavily censored. I've been down to like probably 1% of my social media reach. Luckily, there's other people now incentivized whose reach hasn't been damaged to actually get me on podcasts. And yeah, we're gonna. I mean, I've been at this for 16 months in terms of exposing him. In fact, the reason why Steve Hilton is neck and neck with him is because 2 weeks after the third assassin hoax, I started going after him, and I started going after him regionally. We've put out something like 300 media pieces. There's a long podcast called Porno Cops about how he employs an OnlyFans creator in his department amongst a lot of these bribery scandals. I mean, that episode, Porno Cops, which I believe is my Blood Money podcast, and that's what that sign is back there. It actually shows a lot of, things like ripping the people off and overcharging for, $3,000 door for $50,000 or a bathroom that's $100,000 that he charges $800,000 for. So in every aspect of being a so-called leader, he is integrally corrupt. What is really interesting about the story, Michael, is that the reason I was even in California, and this is the great twist that I don't have that teed up on this particular piece, but I was the guy that actually discovered the 150 semi trucks and trailers that were transporting illegal ballots all through California, New Mexico, Colorado, and California being a big one, right? So on October 8th, I went to California, went to the James O'Keefe premiere of Line in the Sand. And the crazy thing is that my friend Nicole was taking pictures that at that event, at the after party. Well, she takes a picture of me, turns 90 degrees and takes a picture of Chad. We're literally standing back to back. We didn't even know we're in the same room. So that night, I go and I drive 3 hours north to a place called Lubec, California, which for people that want to see that video, like I said, everything has receipts. It's called The Motherlode of California Ballot Fraud. Just if you search Motherlode and California, it'll pop up on X, or it's right on our front page at americahappens.com. Well, while I was investigating this through two whistleblower truck drivers, we discovered that from Tacoma, Washington, ballots were being loaded up on 150 semi trucks and trailers and being distributed all through California. The thing that really freaked out these drivers was that normally when they're tasked with this kind of a job, they just, pick up their trucks and then go and do their job, right? In this case, they were realizing that the ballots are crossing state lines. They had actually seen these fraudulent ballots, and they were chaperoned and told that the only truck stops they could stop at were the two truck stops in California, one towards the north, one towards the south in Lubec, California. That's why I went to Lubec, to actually take pictures of the trucks, document their DOT numbers. And I handed this to people that are associated with Trump. And if you remember, on December 14, 2025, Trump came out and said, we've discovered truckloads of ballot fraud in California. Or he said something like, we have truckloads of ballot fraud in California, evidence of ballot fraud. And from what I've been told through his very close associates is that he is referring in part to my investigation, the files that I handed to lawyers and friends of his, and I'm talking about bills of lading and names of people, the names of the principals of the company, who incidentally, two of the principals of the company happened to be both convicted felons who never did a day in jail. You know, one of them was convicted of 3 counts of aggravated rape and only paid a $200,000 fine. The other owner of the company was convicted of financial fraud and again did no time. So when I started sharing this with individuals like Patrick Byrne and other individuals that are involved in exposing our election fraud, they said, wow, that has the hallmarks of individuals that are essentially on the take with the government and just, you know, doing all this bad stuff to prevent themselves from going to jail. So that was the precursor to all this. That was the reason I even had firearms, which, by the way, one was a Glock 19, the other one was a shotgun. So these are not assassination weapons. I don't think there's been an assassination with a shotgun or a handgun since like probably World War I. And you see, like, a competent sheriff would look at all this. I mean, if I had a high-powered rifle and a notebook where I'm talking about killing people like a crazy person, I get it. But it's like, to think that you could lie to this degree and get away with it, and once you're caught lying, to keep lying, knowing that all you're doing is you're adding dollar signs to the eventual amount that I'm going to end up winning for the defamation and slander, because this was like, you know, the worst case of defamation and slander, including him lying and saying that I made verbal statements. I'm here to kill President fill in the blanks. Well, I mean, it's just, I don't know. That's why I don't hesitate when I put him in these like AI images with straitjackets and that sort of thing, because I think that's the kind of individual we're dealing with here in terms of Chad Bianco.
Yeah, I totally agree. This guy's over the top in defamation. So you're how much you suing him for?
It's for $100 million, and they're doing every delay tactic because, again, you know, it's like he hired. So I have a mom and pop firm, a guy that's quite a fighter. His name is Ethan Behrman, and I always say that his name's very appropriate because he's like a bear of a man. He goes after this sort of corruption. That's why I chose him when there was a lot of lawyers wanting to take on this case. But, you know, they hired a law firm. They got 6 lawyers getting paid somewhere between, $750 to $1,500 an hour. They probably already wasted $250,000 worth of taxpayers' money. And, what does he care?
That's another question. That was the other question. I mean, that's the problem when you're going after corruption like this. Mm-hmm. Taxpayers pay for these criminals. It's crazy. This guy's a criminal.
This guy's a criminal, yeah. That's why I say, like, when the first thing I posted, if people look at the pinned video and they're like, dude, you can't call him the criminal, he's going to come after you. I'm like, listen, man, I've been doing this stuff for 8 years. I mean, Chad Bianco is not the first person I've exposed. Through our brand Media Assassins in America Happens, I'm proud to say I've taken down 4 judges off the bench. I've taken a bunch of, and people could just check out MediaAssassins.com and Google search those individuals. They lost their positions. I got lawyers that lost their bar license because I also studied law, so I don't have fear when it comes to things like this, because if you're defamation, it's not defamation if it's true, right? And if they come after you and say, oh, whatever, I'm going to sue you for defamation because you said I'm a criminal. Like if Chad Bianco ever did that, well, guess what? We'll go into court. I could handle that case myself. It's not too hard. Then we get into the depositions and discoveries phase. In the depositions and discoveries, I start pulling people into court, and now it becomes a matter of law. The minute I get a deposition from somebody that's like, yeah, he did some criminal stuff, and I got receipts, which I got tons of receipts of, now I'm anti-slapping them. Now I'm taking their money, and on top of that, I'm taking legal fees and pretty much proving in the court of law that that person is a criminal, just like I've been saying from day one about Chad Bianco. And then what happens in court? Then the judge takes notice and they're like, whoa, this guy just caught a criminal. And now it has to go to the Department of Justice. So it's the kiss of death for them to come after truth. And my experience in law and being able to file lawsuits and go after these people gives me a great sense of confidence that, you know, as long as you're telling the truth, man, there's nothing they could really do to you. And if they try, it'll be at their own detriment. I'll just, you know, make a lot more money.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I you know, we're seeing in Minneapolis, there's tremendous fraud. And you're already starting to expose it with him. So,
yeah.
So there, I mean, he's on like shaky ground right now, and he's trying to push back, and he's lying everywhere. Jeez, man, he's going to like not have anybody supporting him. So I like that RFK was Junior was like you know, hanging out with you, taking a picture. That's cool.
Yeah, I met a lot of these people. I mean, I've been in the game for a while. You know, I've had a lot of suppression because, you know, you go after judges and that sort of thing, and they, you know, they make phone calls. Like my X account, you notice the chart there is like spiking, and then all of a sudden Bianco does his election call, and then it basically flatlines, right? Well, we even found out what that's all about. Luckily, like Stu Peters 3 days ago released a code that shows you all the labels that are placed on your account that cause suppression. And people finally realized that X is actually suppressing people over a whole bunch of things. Well, that code I actually had 3 months ago. Okay. We ran the audit. We got the evidence that the primary reason why my X account, they're saying 75%, but I actually think it's worse. But the primary reason why my X account has been suppressed is because of Chad Bianco and his campaign. So he's using leftist tactics, basically saying, hey, I'm a Republican, but using leftist tactics of censorship and suppression, using his powers as sheriff to shut voices that disagree or that have receipts about his crimes. You know what I mean? So again, you know, this is like the fact that they crowned this guy like Kamala, they did with Kamala, and what they did against Bernie and Hillary, you know. I'm certainly not a fan of any of those. You know, I'm not a fan of Bernie, but it's messed up what they did to him. That wasn't a democratic process. And here we have the California Republican Party trying to do the exact same thing. And I think they've created a big mess. You know, I wish Louis Herms was given the chance to debate all these candidates properly. And I think he would have been the front runner if that was the case. But in case they crown somebody that, frankly, in California, he has zero chance of winning.
Wow. So, yeah, you're I'm looking at all your different accounts here. Looks like you're doing pretty good on many of them.
Trying. I mean, I would have been in a much better spot without all this suppression. I actually lost about 4,000 followers in a couple of months span. I mean, I got those charts too, and it was right after he called. You know, he basically declared for his election. All of a sudden, it plummeted because you know how it is. It's like if you're not suppressed, you just kind of keep growing and growing. So I'm at like 15,000 on X right now. I think I would have been at 50,000 or more if I didn't spend the last 12 months, you know, being heavily suppressed by this guy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. There's some more video here. There's only like a minute or two left, but this is kind of some of the. So remember, he said, "I wish I could take people behind the woodshed and beat the shit out of him." Right. Yeah. So now imagine that's what he's telling the public. So you can imagine that internally, he's probably saying a lot worse. And you know, and that's his attitude. You know, this is the kind of police department he runs, where violence and that kind of behavior is okay, and that is what this next section is about. So this is like a drunk guy, and yeah, he does elbow the cop, but then, you know, like,
oh, wow.
I mean, he's down, guys. You know what I mean? Like, you got him. You know. So these are his wonderful deputies. And by the way, there's more coming. This is only 3
look at that guy doing the knee. Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, just right in his ass, you know, like it's crazy, man. But
that's
and then obviously nothing happened to these guys. You know, there's other video too where at a later time I might send that to you.
Wow.
This is a short one, but you know.
The only true experts in what we see on the street with these people that are out there is law enforcement. We're dealing with it on a daily basis. So as the governor, I will tell you that I'll make it a crime for all of you to ever use the word homeless again. Because the word homelessness is a psychological ploy to get you to feel sorry for them. This has absolutely nothing to do with homes.
So that's all that right there. I'll stop sharing the screen, but you know, I want to show let me close this. I want to show a selection of you know, so you guys could see the different aspects. There's a lot more. I know Lewis has receipts which we still haven't released. I've had them for a while too, in terms of, you know, what I was saying about overbilling builds, and that's an interesting story there too, because there was a cop that was actually a former contractor, so he knows what stuff costs, right? Yeah. And when he saw these bathrooms that are, you know, being built at 800,000, but they only cost 100,000, and doors that are 3,000 that they're building at 50,000, he started to flag them, right? What does Chad Bianco do? Well, he gets rid of that guy. He ships him to another department, and he puts in somebody that has no idea about anything doing with builds. And now all of this fraud starts getting through. And that's kind of thing that Chad Bianco's done over and over again. We know stories about election fraud where the best experts were brought in by patriots who have been doing it for a really long time, served to Chad Bianco and said, hey, this guy could really figure out what's happening with, you know, for example, the trucking of illegal ballots, what I discovered, right? And Chad Bianco decides not to work with that person. He decides to hire somebody that everybody's been saying doesn't know what the hell they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. So this is Chad Bianco. This is unfortunately Chad Bianco and his, you know, dirty police department.
Yeah, this is Mr. Magoo, who says go to Chad Bianco's wiki and hit references and go down to numbers 15, 16, 17. Read those, and you will see there just so happens to be a slew of deaths at Riverside County Jail. Yeah. He's a sheriff and a coroner. That's convenient, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. He's had the highest number of jail deaths in California history. You guys saw a few jail videos there, and you could imagine if that's the way they behave. Unfortunately, you have a lot of Republicans in California that really don't care that inmates are essentially being killed off, and there's more video coming on that, by the way. I won't talk about that too much, but there's a slew of things that we're getting our hands on that shows some of the dirty stuff that happens inside his prisons. And, you know, you see his attitude. It's like taking people behind the woodshed and beating the crap out of them, which obviously is something that could lead to somebody's death or murder. And him being, I don't even know how, like, he got the coroner position. That makes zero sense to me, because you'd think you'd want an unbiased third party, which in some of these counties, there's no such thing that exists. I mean, I got to shout out Michael Hestrin, the DA, his fishing buddy, his fishing buddy. The DA's his fishing buddy. The one guy that could hold him accountable, he goes fishing with, and they profess their love to each other. So there's nobody playing watchman on this. Like, he gets to do whatever he wants. His brother's a big-time CPS judge. He's part of the LGBTQ community, has a husband and 4 daughters, who I've heard there's a lot of complaints about. A lot of parents have come to me and said, you know, they took my child away and force adopted him through CPS. Well, none of those are investigated. So he's got a pretty good ecosystem of buddies and family members to help cover this sort of thing up, you know. And frankly, like, I don't think he's faced somebody like me before, because I mean, he should have done his research better in terms of my work in going after, you know, people in powerful positions, and really not, like, you know, moving fearlessly, because I don't think he realized I was going to hit him as hard as, like, I hit him. And like I said, I've been at it for 16 months, and Steve Hilton has been the benefactor. I wish, like, Louis Herms, like, had declared earlier, but Steve Hilton, because, you know, he's the other chosen guy by the mainstream media.
Fox News, you know, he's got all that back.
Yeah. Yeah, and Fox News, by the way, the reason Fox News doesn't report about Chad Bianco, which tells you a lot about Fox News, is because something like $100 million of ad buys were given by the California Republican Party to Fox News. So, Fox News is not Fox News. Fox News is basically Fox propaganda, because when you're covering up news, which is what they've done with this story, by the way, Laura Ingraham invited me to talk about the third assassin hoax. And then 4 hours later, I get a phone call saying that, she doesn't want to do it because the legal department scared her, because the legal department most likely said, hey, the California Republican Party wants this guy to be, the main candidate for a Republican governor. And we just gave you $100 million, guys, and that creates a conflict of interest. So that's also what's going on there. I mean, when you're kind of in my shoes, and Lewis is exactly like this too. That's why I get along with Lewis so well. And the receipts, how things work. People come out after me often that are like, well, if he's that bad, why isn't the DA saying anything? Or why don't we hear about it on Fox News? Well, you know what? 99.9% of the time, the answer is money and corruption. Money and corruption. That's the reason why. And we have receipts of that too. Like, we got people that gave testimonials about this $100 million that was given to Fox News to buy ad time to push Chad Bianco, and to a lesser degree Steve Hilton, because I think they're all hoping on Chad Bianco. And the reason for Chad Bianco, by the way, is that he's a great fundraising mechanism. You don't need to win the election. You don't even need to be a viable candidate. If you got like Riverside County, where there's so many people that are on the payroll of the Riverside Sheriff's Department, right? And so they're out there, spreading propaganda about how great Chad is. And now you're getting all these donors because you think, the sheriff's going to save California, ignoring the fact that he has an 8% crime solving record. So he can't even do his current job correctly. Then, you sell a lot of t-shirts, you get a lot of donors, and really that's what it is. We got our California Republican Party that doesn't care about winning. They care about fundraising and enriching themselves and being on the payroll that is the people's money,
God, man.
Yeah.
This sucks. And Riverside, that's a very conservative, very, I'd say GOP area, probably the strongest in California. And then you got a guy like that in there. Wow, that's a bad look.
Yeah.
How is he getting elected in there? How are the people electing him in there? Maybe they don't know. Maybe they didn't watch the video. So, God.
Yeah. This is what it is. You got a Vem Miller out there who's being suppressed. You got other individuals. There's a lot of them. There's like the Mathis family whose son died in jail under Bianco's custody, and Bianco covered it up. There's lawsuits pertaining to that. There's actually a court hearing next week regarding that in the Los Angeles Superior Court. When you got it, this is why I think he's so arrogant, because he's got all the right contacts, including the DA in his pocket that would be tasked with normally investigating a local criminal like this, including Fox News. Obviously, the left side of the media, they don't really talk about him that much. He's like kind of a non-entity right now. But when you got the media plugged, you got the law enforcement plugged, you got like, I think he's got something like 4,000 staff under his $1.1 billion budget. And by the way, there's all kinds of favors. Like, he buys his executive staff $4,000 guns from the payroll of the department, right? So rather than buying him $500 Glocks, he's getting the fanciest handguns, Wow. Sheriff Stan, who was the prior sheriff, was having his executive staff drive around in $30,000 cars. Well, Chad Bianco comes into power, and he's buying $100,000 cars, right? So you have a lot of people that are living large on the taxpayers' funds. And by the way, the minute Chad Bianco came in, the budget ballooned by something like $400-something million. It went from $700 million to $1.1 billion. A lot of this is, him using the public trust like an ATM, and doing favors like this, cutting deals with.
Is that the local government that funds that, or does that come from,
California? It comes from the California budget, which is
even Newsom is funding him. I can't believe it.
See, this is what people don't understand when it comes to the real deal bad stuff. And Rob Bonta, by the way, who's also a Democrat, they play a little bit of WWE in front of us, where they're like, Bianco's bad, and Rob Bonta keeps saying things like he's got a civil rights investigation against Chad Bianco, but they pretend that they are against each other. But when it comes to the real dirty stuff, this is what happens. So Newsom has made anywhere between, the estimates are $10 and $50 million enrichment while he's been in office. When you look at Rob Bonta, he's done a whole bunch of real estate scams, putting money in trust, right? And we're talking in the, tens of millions of dollars of personal enrichment, right? So they might come out there and be like, ooh, Chad's a meanie for, whatever, beating up people, right? But when it comes to the real stuff that they're enriching themselves, and I'm talking about these things that Louis Herms has receipts on, in terms of, paying $700,000 more for a bathroom, where, everybody knows a bathroom shouldn't cost more than, or a contractor knows a bathroom shouldn't cost more than $100,000. So that money's going somewhere. It's being hidden in trust. You have these individuals buying houses left and right, and putting them in trust, right? So what happens if, Newsom really decides, I'm going to reveal the real stuff. I'm going to reveal the millions that are being lost. I'm going to reveal how he's wasting all these money on lawsuits. Well, Chad Bianco will do the same to him, because they all know each other's dirt. He's like a sheriff, so that's not hard to find out that Newsom has enriched himself and stolen a lot of money from the public trust. It's not hard to find out that Rob Bunt has done the same, and that's when the real dirt comes out. That's when the kind of dirt comes out that lands all three of them in jail. So while they play WWE in front of us, behind the scenes, that's the stuff that they hide, knowing that they're hiding it, knowing that they have a devil's compromise there, where, whatever, we'll be like pretend enemies out in public, but really behind the scenes, we're all getting rich off the people's money.
Wow. Now, you also have another website, VemMiller.com, and you're a film, TV producer, documentary maker, investigative journalist. Boy, they picked the wrong guy. It's almost like God picked you to go be in that spot so that you could, expose this guy and all the criminality that's going on there in Riverside.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. That's the one thing I think about all the time, because 50,000 people showed up at that rally. And by the way, a lot of people have come forward and said, look, man, I had guns too in my trunk. I just wasn't stupid enough to tell them, you know what I mean? So, I have this, I don't know, man, it's like, I have this stupid honesty thing where I just think honesty is the best policy, and probably it will be the best policy once this thing plays out. It's not like this whole thing hasn't been difficult and stuff, but I think out of all 50,000 people, honestly, pick the one guy that could actually sink his campaign. And obviously I can't do it myself. I need people's help out there, especially since I'm censored. But in terms of my skill sets, I've been at it since like the late 90s, man. I started off as a music video director. I did music videos for some prominent artists, got nominated for like MTV awards and, BET awards, all, Source magazine awards. I worked with DMX, Master P, John Mayer. I did a video for Jerry Seinfeld. I directed about 100 music videos, a lot of them that were on MTV at the time, a lot of buzzworthy clips. I met Kanye West when he first started as an artist, as a consultant, because they said, oh, this Vem guy and you Kanye, you both think different, like you're wanting different kind of videos, because I would specialize in conceptual videos that were different than some of the videos other people were doing. So, I met, this was back in 2001 when I first started professionally as a music video director. Worked with DMX, Master P. There's pictures out there with me hanging out with these guys. Moved to New York for about 4 years during that era. Pretty much knew all the record labels, all the Def Jam artists, all the Interscope artists. Grew up with a lot of rock bands. That's how I got my start. I was actually friends with the guys from System of a Down. We're all Armenian. And I knew those guys back when they weren't even called System of a Down. They also, it's funny because now I listen to their like albums and stuff, and the lyrics are kind of like, I'm like, wow, that's where I learned all this stuff, was hanging out with Serge and Darren, and hearing Serge write his lyrics early on. And it's all about this kind of corruption. I mean, the stuff that has become in the public consciousness in the last, 4 to 8 years with the deep state and how stuff really works. I mean, these were System of a Down lyrics back in the 90s, So I have kind of a very, just a varied past in the entertainment business. And then in 2008, I got sick of doing music videos. I was specializing in hip hop videos, working with a lot of, quote unquote gangsters and that sort of thing. And still, doing a lot of rock videos and pop videos too. But in 2008, I transitioned to making television shows where I specialized in creating and selling shows that were documentary or reality, which I did till 2018. Helped to run the Vice Media Development Department when they first launched their Viceland network. And then saw really what turned me off of that business, because I actually really enjoyed the TV business and creating and selling TV shows, being an executive producer. But what really turned me off was that around 2016, all the woke propaganda came in, right? And a lot of people that were in my shoes in Hollywood also had this experience where it felt like, first we're creating TV shows and doing stories and that sort of thing. And then it became about propaganda, right? Selling the LGBTQ thing. And then I left before the COVID thing hit, but a lot of people that left around the time of COVID became, were like, I don't want to be a vaccine propagandist, because all the legitimate doctors that I'm meeting are telling me that this is like a death jab and it causes blood clots and all kinds of horrible things. So, it was between 2016 and 2018 that the industry changed so much. And it was very obvious that this was kind of like a planned, orchestrated thing, because what they stopped doing is they stopped creating content for the sake of making good stories, and it became propaganda. So in 2018, I was so disgusted of what I had experienced. I mean, that was a really difficult time between those 2 years, because I didn't want to give up my, really well-paying job and all the kind of spoils that come along with that sort of thing. Sure. But, I left the business in 2018 and I started getting into like something totally different. I launched a health and wellness company. Did that for a year and a half, and I learned a lot there too about, all the stuff they don't tell us about, because, all the good stuff is cheap or free, basically, in terms of what's good for your health and longevity. But, I didn't enjoy that world, because you're dealing with a lot of shiesty stores and that sort of thing that I learned a lot about how they lie to people. Like if you buy, like, for example, a product that says they got 1,000 milligrams of something, chances are if you test it, there's only 150 milligrams, because the distributors that are always wanting to make a bigger buck usually go with the companies that have the products at the lowest possible distribution wholesale price, and they flat out lie about their labels, and this includes all aspects. Like there's a cookie out there that says, oh, there's only like 10 milligrams of sugar. Well, I know the manufacturer, and there's like 60 milligrams of sugar, and they flat out lie on their labeling. Obviously, what they submit first for testing is the 10 milligram version. But then by the time it hits the market, it's like 60 milligrams. So that was
I have a buddy that basically was doing really, really well, multi-million dollar. He had supplements and so forth. And he was approached by this one group that wanted him to do a supplement. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do that stuff, because he knew it was compromised. Bad stuff. And so, make long story short, is basically the CIA wanted him to push this product that was going to be very bad for people. And then they came after him, destroyed him, destroyed his company. Crazy stuff. Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy, dude. With the CIA, you mentioned the CIA, and I actually think that that's part of the backing of Chad Bianco and why he's been propped up.
Really?
I mean, I just think he has deep ties somewhere, because of the way he's able to censor stuff. It's not just the sheriffs. Like the fact that he was able to do this assassin hoax, which, by the way, if you and I lied to the FBI, that's 5 to 8 years for submitting false information. But these guys never get like any punishment, right? Most likely the best we're going to do is make sure this guy's out of the race so he could go retire and make a shit ton of money in his retirement, right? And I asked myself, why are these guys not held accountable? And like the truck stop or the truckloads of ballot fraud in the 2 individuals I talked about, it's because these people are propped up, which makes me question, why is the CIA propping up these talentless individuals that are toxic to the country, toxic to the state of California, and creating this precedent of basically these losers that you don't want to aspire to be a Chad Bianco. You want to aspire to be somebody better. But it's like a bad lesson learned when the public looks at a Chad Bianco and says, okay, this guy's a complete piece of crap, but he's making $650,000 a year. And his last 2 years, he's going to make $725,000. And a lot of people look at that and think, oh, evil's the best way for me to be rich and live a comfortable life. And that is a terrible lesson to teach the public. And that's really what's going on. I mean, you know, because a lot of bad guys are in powerful positions, while the guys that try to stay honest and try to do the right thing and true patriots are quashed, you know. And I'm an example of that. I don't look at myself as a victim, because whatever the, you know, there's always a creative way. Hey, you're gonna censor my you know, media. I'm gonna get on the, you know, Michael Jaco show and a whole bunch of other shows, and I'm gonna overcome that, right? But a lot of people don't have that ability to roll with the punches and to be kind of clever in the midst of such corruption. So yeah, I just question what that has done to our country, you know, and including our presidents, by the way. You know, like, I try to not look at it as a, you know, red and blue thing. I look at Obama and George W. Bush as they're both pieces of crap, in my opinion, you know. And you know, it's like, what is the lesson that George W. Bush taught us, really? What is the lesson that he taught us? That he could most likely been part of 9/11, you know, been part of the housing crisis, almost driven this country to bankruptcy, and then retire, you know, comfortable life at Crawford Ranch and no accountability. Like, what does that teach the youth about doing things in the righteous way, you know?
Yeah. So, yeah, you're exposing a lot of stuff. This is good, Vem. I'm very excited about what you're doing here, and hopefully this gets a lot of views. And I know you're probably going to go on a lot of other shows, so we'll hopefully other people look at this and say, yeah, let's get this guy on. I'd love to have it back on, you know, discuss, you know, where you see things going in the future.
Yeah.
And you know, you got to keep talking, because this is a bad dude.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of bad dudes, by the way. You know, there's a lot more bad dudes. Obviously, this guy's been
behind him, yeah.
Behind him, and you know, like today I just released a video about a judge that specializes in stealing old people's estates and then sending them to mental asylums where they're drugged until they die. There's actually a video called a documentary called The Guardian about the guardianship scandals. So we're constantly, you know, Chad Bianco is one of like 100 different targets that I have on my list. Chad Bianco just happens to be the front runner as far as being a target of mine, because he's running for California governor. A lot of people are drinking his Kool-Aid. A lot of people don't know this information because it is so heavily suppressed. So right now he's, you know, enemy number one on my list, and I have to make sure that this guy doesn't attain any more power and cause any more damage. But in terms of bad guys, I mean, I got a list of 100 of them that need to be called out, because the system's not calling them out. And that's why when you go on the Media Assassins website, it says when there is no law. And if you actually watch the 30-second sizzle reel, it's all about how, you know, when there is no law, when the DAs and the AGs and everybody else is that dirty that they don't hold these people accountable, well, the only way to expose them is to put their stuff on blast, like Nick Shirley does, like James O'Keefe does, like you do, like all of us independent podcasters and investigative journalists do, because they left us no choice. You know, they left us no choice by allowing these people to run wild. Like today, there's enough evidence that Chad Bianco should be in handcuffs. You know what I mean? And the fact that that's not happening is because the ecosystem is so corrupt. Chad Bianco is enabled by the ecosystem around him. And that goes, by the way, for every scumbag politician, judge, lawyer out there. they have the ecosystem protecting them. So, you know, what do? You got to expose them.
Yeah, you're doing a good job. Yeah, maybe we should have back on and expose some of these other jackasses.
I would love to. I would love to. My big thing now is this family law world, because they're straight up destroying families. You know, men especially are victims of family law. You know, I know you want to wrap it up, but just really quickly, like, I know a guy named Adam Vina where his child was taken from him because he wouldn't go along with the transgender plan of his wife or his ex-wife. There's a lot of individuals like that. And, you know, you got a whole generation of kids being raised by not having their dad in their family, which, by the way, is the perfect execution of the Marxist plan. Because if you don't have that good male influence on your life, what happens is you kind of live a compromised life in terms of your confidence, your mental state, which is right out of Communist Manifesto. I mean, this is what they want, you know, and the enemy ultimately is the communist, Marxist, atheists, right? And I don't say atheists across the board, because atheist humanists are they're humanists, like they don't want to harm people. But then there's like the atheists of the like the Chinese Communist Party, whose agenda is really to destroy all religion, all faith, including, and you know, I tell this to people like, hey, if you're a yoga instructor, just look at what they did with the Falun Gong practitioners in China, killing them,
organ harvest on them. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you think that they're not going to come after you, yoga chick from Venice Beach, you know what I'm saying? So yoga chick at Venice Beach is as much of a target as the Orthodox priest, as the Orthodox Jew, as a practicing Muslim, you name it. If you believe in anything, they want to destroy that. And that's what the COVID jab was about, because they wanted you to kind of have your ceiling be government. Government says X, Y, and Z. Forget about, you know, what thoughts God is putting in your head about the corruption of this thing. Everything is about stealing your faith so government could control you. And we get this 1984 type world. And, you know, it's like, we got to call it out, man. We got to call it out and stop that, because we could be sandwiched between two communist states in our country. And then what do we do? You know what I mean? With what happened in New York and what's been happening with a lot of the leftists.
Yep. Man, good points. Good points. Everything. Fabulous. So glad we decided to have you on, man. You're a gold mine with information. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm really glad to be on your show, man. I've been a huge fan, and thank you for giving me the time to ramble away here, you know?
I love it. Yeah, you ramble good.
Thanks, man.
So AmericaHappens.com, and what other places can people reach at?
America Happens, VemMiller.com. My ex, which is @NotVemMiller, because I still don't have my Vem Miller account back from Twitter 1.0, which is a curious thing, because I was No, we're supposed to have a general amnesty, but I think I've done too much freedom of speeching and, you know, pissed off somebody out there, you know?
Well, even Elon, you know, he's got his one of his people that he's been with, women. He's got like lots of them that he's had children with. And one of them wants to turn their child into transgender. And he's like, no, I'm going to get that child. So it's crazy. So you would think that he would be like, you know, for you and everybody else like us. I was lucky to get back in. They took me down along with Trump and everybody else. So I'm surprised you're not back in there.
I mean, that's why I got the Not Vem Miller account. And right now, with what was exposed by Stu Peters a couple of days ago about all the throttling and the tricks they're playing, I mean, really what they're doing is the same thing as Twitter 1.0. I really miss the pre-2016 Twitter under Jack Dorsey, where, you know, my story about a corrupt judge that's stealing people's estates would have had a chance. And now what it feels like, I mean, I read the whole how the algorithm works. Basically what it is, it's like an algorithm built for an echo chamber. That's why when, you know, Jake Lang gets attacked by leftists, every account is talking about Jake Lang. Well, that's not really what's happening. You're seeing all those be promoted, while that video that I released the same day about the corrupt judge gets like 30 views, you know, and on an account by the way, that I should be more in the thousands compared to the ratio of what I have. So
Yeah.
clearly this algorithm's not working. I don't know what's going on with Elon. I've definitely been very vocal about it. And by the way, on that tip, you know, for people on X, you could actually file an arbitration suit that ChatGPT teaches you how to do. It's very easy. You're like, hey, this is what's going on. I'm throttled. I ran the code. And then you file an arbitration suit. The reason why this is such an important thing to do for people is because every time you file an arbitration suit with X, they cost them $5,000. If you have 10,000 people, and it's hard to get Elon's attention, but if you have 10,000 people filing arbitration suits, that's $50 million. Okay, so that'll get Elon's attention very quickly.
Wow. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see you do like you're with Mindy Robinson. She's got a lot of followers too, right?
Yeah. Mindy's great. You know, she did the Route 91 documentary that I think it's had something like 100 million downloads on just what I calculated. Because she let it out there for free, you know, made it where, hey guys, you could post this on your accounts. At one point when we're trying to, you know, we created a business plan about what we were doing. And I actually tabulated, you know, how many downloads there was based upon the 100 different accounts that are sharing her documentary. I mean, it was way up there. It was past like 80 million, probably at 100 million now. And she's been the premier person. You know, there's been others, by the way, that I later found out that were very instrumental in exposing what happened with the Route 91 shooting, the Las Vegas mass shooting. But yeah, her documentary definitely is, you know, one of the biggest ones out there. And, you know, now we're actually starting a health company because I think she, you know, she felt like she's banging her head against the wall. She started this a lot earlier than I did. And I think she's just like, well, I need to do something else to balance it out with all this political stuff. Because sometimes it sounds like, you know, you're like yelling at a, you know, mirror and stuff and not getting much change happening. So we're going to launch our little health website too very soon.
Nice.
And yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Once you get it launched, we'll have it back on and promote it. That'll be good.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
I'm going to help you guys out, you know, because you're getting crushed. And, you know, the only way we can win is if we get this information out, and you got to have the resources to keep it up. So that's good.
Yeah. I do documentaries too, by the way, on the side. I get privately commissioned to make documentaries, which is always helpful. Doing a family law documentary right now about the corrupt ecosystem of that. So really excited about that project.
Yeah, good. All right, Vem. Thanks so much.
Thanks, brother.
An honor to have you on. You're like sticking it out there, man.
Honor to be on your show too, man. I really appreciate you giving me the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll do it again.
All right, brother. Thank you.